All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. A massive wish list from Governor Eric Holcomb awaits lawmakers. He asked for big investments in public health and education when he unveiled his agenda. Garrett Berquist brings us highlights.
Governor Holcomb says he wants major investments in education, although changes to the school funding formula appear to be off the table.
So that budget that we put together is going to reflect not just our priorities, but it's going to also center on kind of four key pillars, those being economic development, those being educational and workforce development, public health and wellness development, and then, of course, community development, which the Lieutenant Governor just touched on a number of those items, all built on this foundation of good government, making things permanent, modernizing all the tools that the Indiana Economic Development Corporation needs to go out and win the type of business that we want to associate ourselves with. So we'll be seeking to establish a $300 million a year deal closing fund. We'll be seeking to establish a $300 million a year tax credit fund or tax credit cap, providing that flexibility for the IEDC to go out there and get the deals that we want. We'll be looking at a $150 million revolving fund for site acquisition. We've made some historic announcements recently. We want to do more of those, obviously. And then we'll formalize through language. This is a good problem to have, but if we go through that funding, we want to go back to the legislature and seek additional appropriations. We'll look to expand access to the child care and development fund, and also on the On My Way pre-K program by raising the eligibility criteria to allow. We identified another 5,000 Hoosier families that would be able to qualify for that program. Currently, there are about 44,000 in the CCDF, and there are another about 6,000 in the On My Way pre-K. And so we think there could be another potentially, as I said, 5,000 more join that 50,000 just by having those options available to Hoosiers. And then we move on up to K through 12. We will be promoting what we've identified as the single biggest dollar amount increase in K through 12, 6% in the first year and 2% in the second year. That equates to right at $1.157 billion in an increase over the biennium. Significant to say the least. We'll also be looking to something that I've wanted to get at for some time now, and now is the time, carpe diem, I guess you could say, and that is eliminating the textbook fees for Hoosier families. I think this is, to do this will be meeting the spirit of the law, quite frankly. We're only one of 7 states, think of those as competitors, that don't. We also need to get healthier as a state. There's just no two ways about it. I won't go through all the rankings today. I'll save that for another day. We could. You've seen those before, I imagine. But suffice it to say that we're going to have to do something different if we want a different outcome. I'm not a believer that these outcomes are inevitable. We think it'll take at least $120 million in the first year and about $227 million in the second year as we build the structure, the new structure, and put it into place and get it underway. It's important to note, as shown on the slide up here, that the first year, 100 million of that 120 goes to the locals, goes to on the street, goes to that side of the partnership. And 200 million in that second year, the 227, is going to the locals. So we're building it from the ground up where the action is occurring in the districts. Finally, for any thriving, prosperous community, they need to be safe. And so we'll be committing major funding on a number of safety fronts. Number one, we'll be looking to increase the school safety fund from the current 19 million a year to 25 million a year. We know the need is there. We'll be looking to increase Indiana State starting pay from the current $53,690 to a minimum of $70,000 starting. We'll be looking to, so good to see the professional and volunteer firefighters sitting by one another, but we'll be looking to implement regional firefighter training assistance, getting to that, developing the hub and spoke approach and infrastructure that's in place right now, but enhancing that.
Given the role that education is playing in this budget, should lawmakers change the complexity formula to take into account factors such as area income, that sort of thing?
It's not the track I'm going down.
And then also, you mentioned STEM curriculum. What sort of overlap does what you're looking for in that area have with some of the things that Speaker Houston and company have talked about regarding high school curriculum? What sort of discussions have you had there?
Considerable. There is. I can confirm. We're in line. We're of one mind in terms of making sure that there are quality programs in place, inventoried, and in place, and funded.
This is just a wish list. Any final decisions on what will go into the budget are up to state lawmakers. That work begins on Monday. In Indianapolis, Garrett Bergquist, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
All right, coming up, top-ranking lawmakers from both parties preview what they're working on for this session. All right, welcome back. Lawmakers from both parties have some ideas of their own for when session begins tomorrow. Our Garrett Bergquist spoke with two of them. Look.
With us now is Senate President Pro Tem Rod Bray. Senator, thank you for letting us drop by today.
Pleased to be here. Thank you.
You've hinted at some potential further income tax cuts this session. Is that going to be sustainable given, A, some of the investments that various interim study committees have called for, and B, the potential mild recession?
In order for us to continue to get these tax decreases, we're going to make sure that our finances are still in good shape. I'll tell you one other thing that we're going to work a little bit on and talk and think a lot about this legislative session is a task force that's going to look at whether Indiana should consider going to zero income tax. Now, this would be largely revenue neutral, so we would have to change our tax structure around so we continue to bring in the same amount of money. We couldn't possibly just get rid of all the income tax, of course.
You made a number of promises on child care funding when you approved the abortion ban earlier in the summer of 2022, and that included the creation of a new child care fund. What can we expect from you this year?
Well, that'll be largely a budget piece, and you're right. We put in, I think it was $87 million in July in our special session, and promised at the time we'll continue to work on that, and you'll see us do that. It'll be a product of the budget where we make sure that we're taking care of mothers, pregnant women, and their new babies as well. So we hope to be able to do that in a very robust way. But again, that gets back to the point that if there's only so many new dollars to go around, so we have to be responsible with how we do that.
What about paid parental leave?
Another issue that we'll take a look at. I think I haven't seen a bill on that yet, but I think one that may be filed.
From the Senate's perspective, what school curriculum changes can we expect in terms of meeting employers' needs?
So you'll see us work super hard on trying to make sure that people are coming out of school with the training that they need. There's some talk about internships, which is a great idea, but when it comes to education, I think there's a couple things that we need to really focus on the most, and that is simply reading, writing, and arithmetic, blocking and tackling of education. Make sure that we have some standards out there that are competitive around the nation, and that we have a way to measure those standards to see how we're doing and hold ourselves accountable for it as well.
Some lawmakers have said they will file legislation to restrict the teaching of LGBTQ topics in elementary school. That's what opponents refer to as so-called "don't say gay" legislation. Will you allow this to come up for a vote?
Well, so first of all, I never thought that title made much sense. It's a conversation with K through kids that are in school from kindergarten through third grade into whether or not it's the school's obligation or a parent's obligation to educate them about their sexuality. And that's a complex conversation. There may be a bill on that filed. I've heard that there will be something out of the House. I'm not aware of one originating in the Senate. So if it comes over here from the House, we'll certainly take a look at it and have that conversation.
Let's welcome in House Minority Leader Phil Giaquinta. Leader Giaquinta, thank you for talking to us today.
My pleasure.
Following the governor's announcement of his budget priorities, you said you liked the governor's ideas, but you weren't sure if House Republicans would go along with it. What was your reasoning behind that statement?
Sure. Well, I tell you, the one thing that jumped off the page was paying for textbook fees. This is something that House Democrats for a long time have advocated for, haven't been agreed upon by the House Republicans. So that's why I was thinking, well, we'll see if they go for this idea or not, because they haven't in the past. But glad to see that the governor included it in his proposal, his budget.
You will formally announce Democrats' priorities once the session gets underway. What preview can you provide to us?
What we really want is for Indiana to be a state that's going to attract and retain talent here in the state. And I think we can do that by investing heavily in public education. We can have let's have a pre-K program, a universal pre-K program. We know that when kids get into pre-K and start learning early, that they become better students. They go on to graduate high school and on to college.
Given the number disparity in the House, what do you believe are the most realistic goals for Democrats this year?
Well, we've been able to get a lot of things passed, frankly, despite being in the minority. We pride ourselves on being pragmatic problem solvers. Frankly, there's issues with regards to childcare. We know businesses are looking for workers, and one of the things that's prohibiting some folks from going to work is the high cost of childcare. So that's one issue that I think that we have proposed in the past. The Indiana Chambers has looked at it, and they realize that there's some barriers there. And I think that's one issue where we can work with House Republicans and get something done.
Do you have any concerns regarding Republicans' calls to overhaul the state's high school curriculum?
Well, I've heard this term about reinventing high school. Not really sure exactly what that means. I think it's time to maybe let's think about reinvesting in public education instead of reinventing it. Obviously, there are always tweaks and things like that to within education. There'll be always sorts of small changes, things like that. But I don't know exactly. I'll be anxious to see what this term means, but I do think it's high time that we make it a priority in our budget to make sure that public education is fully funded.
All right, coming up, a historic fight for Speaker in Washington and a busy session looming at home. Indiana's best political team joins us next to make sense of it all. All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back Republican Mario Massolemani and Democrat Laura Beck. Good to see you both. Let's begin with the biggest political story this week, if you don't mind. That historic fight for Speaker of the House. Not since before the Civil War, guys, have we needed this many ballots to choose one. Mario, hardline conservatives drove that fight. Are you and your party's efforts catering to the Donald Trump wing backfiring here, in your opinion?
I think that there's going to be a compromise. I think that this is a good process. It allows for many people within the party to figure out what is the best way to have McCarthy rule as Speaker. There's a little give and take. I'm not opposed to that, and I think that McCarthy will be the Speaker at the end of the day. And there will be some compromise, and some of the conservative wing of the party will get some concessions.
That being said, Laura, should Democrats have maybe crossed the aisle or worked on a compromise candidate just so that the House can, get to work sooner?
Look, I mean, this is their show. I mean, they're supposed to elect their speaker, and they were incapable of doing that. I think the question now remains, what happens to this caucus that is in utter disarray when they actually have work to do for the people? This was electing a speaker, which should really just be a formality. So how they're going to govern, that's a good question. What really stood out to me as we watched last week, though, is that Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, was so far out of Washington. He was actually with President Biden talking about bipartisanship as they opened a bridge together. So I think he can read the tea leaves that this dysfunction is not effective. And I think if he's any sign, they're going to be trying to move away from that as much as possible.
Mario, not a great look, though, for the Republican Party, right?
In some ways, maybe. But here's the thing. This is giving the Republican Party an opportunity to compromise. That's a dirty word in politics, but if you were watching C-SPAN, you saw Democrats and Republicans actually talking to each other. And, watching as this unfolds and it hasn't unfolded. And I don't think that it's a bad thing if it takes a week to get a speaker, because at the end of the day, the House, as it's run by a slim majority by the Republicans, their job is to make sure that the Senate and the president are able to compromise. And this is an opportunity for the certain wing of the party, the Trump wing or the conservative wing, to get some concessions to make sure that their candidates get some leadership roles within committees, to get some other procedural wins. And I think that as long as this is resolved by next week, then everything will move as expected.
Closer to home now, guys. We now know exactly what Governor Eric Holcomb will ask for in his agenda. Laura, your party says the increases in public health spending and teacher pay are welcome, but just not enough. Isn't some financial restraint, though, worthwhile here?
Well, I think two things. Let's look at it from a broad perspective. I mean, the governor's agenda really followed along the lines, especially in terms of improving the quality of life as it relates particularly to healthcare, that goes back 20 years. We are at the bottom of nearly every metric when it comes to quality of life in this country. Indiana is. And so the Republicans have been in charge for 20 years, and they haven't been able to make any improvement whatsoever on that. So I don't think we're going to see any progress on it. I don't think we're going to see any movement, because the second piece here is the governor's agenda is just that. It's the governor's agenda. But we're going to be heading into a gubernatorial election year, and he's not running for re-election. He's not running right now for anything. So his agenda is not something necessarily that the folks in the House and the Senate, in his party particularly, are really going to be caring about. They're looking ahead down the road to protecting themselves as well as to protecting who they're going to be pushing forward in 2024.
Politics aside, Mario, given how much money the state has in reserve, shouldn't we put more toward public health and teacher pay, especially if it means saving some costs in the future?
Phil, here's the problem. 20 years ago, when we took basically the governor's office, I was involved in helping Mitch Daniels get elected in 2004. We were in dire straits. The Democrats had been spending money like drunken sailors. We had unfunded pensions. We had all sorts of issues. Our roads weren't taken care of. And, the budget was in a mess. And Republicans are like your mother. We make you eat your vegetables. We make sure the homework is done. We make sure that we have and are always focused on making sure that we're ready for a rainy day. That's why we've been so successful. You see all the businesses coming in from Illinois and from Chicago to Indiana. We are a spot where businesses want to come to and relocate to, where people want to move to during COVID.
I want to get Laura in here because she's shaking her head. No, go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
I think if the Republicans were making us eat our vegetables, I think our obesity rate wouldn't be so abysmal. I mean, I think this is a response. Clearly, I've touched a nerve here, but I mean, at the end of the day, they've had 20 years. If they haven't been able to get this done in 20 years, what else are they going to do? I mean, they can tout, tax cuts for the rich and corporate giveaways and things like that. But at the end of the day, the governor's agenda basically admits that they're failing in these areas. But I don't necessarily think that the folks in the General Assembly are going to give it any attention. They're just going to continue doing what they're doing.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens with that. This question's for both of you. I want to get you both in here real quick. Everyone has their priorities this session, but from where we sit right now, what are the wild cards to watch out for? Maybe something that each party has on tap that we haven't even thought about here. Mario, we'll start with you here.
Well, wild cards wise, I think that with property assessments going up, I think that that's going to be an issue that people are going to be shocked at when they get their bill. A lot of people are going to be facing probably 30-40% increase. So, we have the property tax caps. I think that that's something that is going to be addressed or at least looked at. I think that's one of the wild card issues. But I think that another wild card is that it's not going to be shocking. Education is a big focus, both on Republicans and Democrats this upcoming legislative session. We're going to really get something accomplished in regards to
Laura, close us out here. Your response on this one. Sorry, Mario.
Oh, I think we're going to see, I think the social issues, I think that will be where we'll see some outrage and engagement on that, definitely. I think the Don't Say Gay piece is going to be an issue this cycle. I'm sorry, this session. And then I also think, I still am not ruling out something on abortion popping up at the end.
Okay, we'll see. Good to see you both. Happy New Year.
Thanks. Happy New Year. Thank you.
We'll be back.
Bye.
All right, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.